Oh, it's going.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Anchor of the week.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Anchor of the Week, where you don't have to agree with us to be friends with us.
Exactly.
It's Courtney here. I've got Sadie with me.
What's up? What's up?
And we have a very special guest today. Guys, we are so hyped, okay? She's not only an author, a journalist, a public speaker, presenter.
Yep.
Okay, she's all those things, but she's also super genuine, super real, and I think is bringing some very honest conversations to the church these days that I think that we really need.
Yes.
And she's also someone that makes you feel like her friend when you talk to her, guys. We're talking about no one other than the one and only Lauren Windle. Thanks for joining us, Lauren.
Oh, one intro. Thanks so much. I feel like I've got to be really, really friendly now. What if I've got mean things to say? I might. You never know. What if I'm like, no, you can't sit with us, and I bring the total wrong energy to the podcast?
Then this will be a great expose.
But hey, yeah, it'll be great. But genuinely, you don't have to be anything other than you are, because what Courtney was saying is you bring that friendly vibe, which is, I think, one of the reasons I reached out to you anyway to be on the podcast, because I personally met Lauren back in November, I think it was, that you spoke at St. Church. And obviously your talk was amazing. It was on your book, your first book, Notes on Love, and it was so good. Me and my friend Robin were there, and then we got to chat with you, and I was like, this girl, she's something else.
She's like, she's a real one.
She's a real one. She's cool.
That was such a fun. It was a tiring day because I did like three preachers back to back, and then had lunch with some of the church stuff and stuff in between. But I had so many good conversations. Like that was a really good. Also, I think of all the churches where I've gone to speak about being single and dating, that one in particular, which was Saint in East London, which is a multi-site church, had so many like very attractive like single people like across the board. And I'm
Lauren,
like, guys,
I'm gonna
why
take
are
that
you
as a
struggling with this?
compliment.
Just look around. Like, look at that woman, look at that guy. Like, come on. Like, don't make me piece this together for you. You know, you can do this. Go and ask someone out. You're surrounded.
My gosh. So basically what I'm hearing is that we need to go to St. Church
We need to continue to go to St. Church more.
Did
This is just a
you
plug
were there?
for
Did you look around? What did you think?
Oh, Lauren, I did. Don't worry, I did. Hey, I was looking. I was also clocking.
This is actually just turns into our plea to the
Yeah,
men at
literally.
St. Church. This is incredible.
Anyway,
dear.
but we actually, funnily enough, have your books with us here.
Oh,
Boom, both of them.
amazing. There they are.
Both
Yeah.
of them, yeah.
And to be fair, this conversation, we want to keep it flowing. We don't want to like get, jabbing about any specific points, but I think we both were just, surprised in such a good way reading your books.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about what you were saying earlier about just how you came into it not thinking it was going to be what it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, of course we have, both. Notes on Love is pretty beat up because it was passed around our friend group quite a bit.
Genuinely.
Shout out to Gabby, who originally bought the book.
Gabby.
This is all because of her.
Gabby, you're my favorite of the whole group. Gabby's my
go.
favorite.
Next to us, obviously.
Oh, well, yeah.
That was a given, yeah. No, but then obviously Notes on Feminism is your newest book.
Yeah.
And I was telling Sadie today, like as we were like prepping this, and I was like, honestly, I was expecting it to be a lot more of like, here's the theology on why we need to support women in church. And literally just it being such a broad sort of range of like, these are some thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of like, but like, we all still love God. If you're in the church, like we are united, and can we allow for the tension of different opinions, which I was like, this is exactly what we stand for on the podcast.
Literally.
Yeah. All the enemy needs to do is divide us, He doesn't need to like get us doing full immersion baptism when really God just wants sprinkling. He just needs us to argue enough about it that we refuse to worship together. So like, I think, I think it's quite clear from Notes on Feminism that I take more of an egalitarian sort of on the more liberal side. I'm reasonably center. I don't think I'm particularly extreme. But I've had so many amazing conversations with people who subscribe to a complementarian theology, which is the more traditional sort of male headship kind of thing. And I just think that we can get in so much trouble if we're like, that is evil. I think we just need to accept that we're all doing our best to work out what is God's best, we're all trying really hard to understand the Bible to the best of our ability. So like there has to be some grace within that, which is basically what you guys are saying. Wait, when you read the books, was there anything that you like 100% disagreed with? Because I want to see if I still can be your friend.
Oh my
Do you have
gosh.
anything that's super?
I don't think so. But I mean, it's funny, we were talking about the egalitarian versus the complementarian point of view and like where we sit on it. And I think just
Okay.
I always, for me, like to say that I'm like a recovered feminist kind of thing, because there was a
Okay, talk
season in
me
my
through
life.
that.
Well, there's a season in my life where I was very aggressive towards men. I was like, I hate men. They're horrible. I mean, to be very honest, like I had experiences in my past with male authority figures that kind of just, I think, ruined me in a way. So I kind of now have swung towards the opposite side when I, really dove into my faith and started walking with God more, and realizing that, that men do play a very important part in society, in our lives, and obviously in the word and the way that God designed us. And so I think now I'm swinging a lot more towards the other side of knowing like there's a position for men, there's a place for men, there's a place for women. But I'm still a little bit on the edge, because we were talking about being in that kind of soft complementarianism modern sect, but I do find myself kind of falling more towards traditional roles recently,
Which is crazy.
yeah, given that I'm not really, I feel like if people were to come up to me and talk to me, they wouldn't think that,
No, absolutely not.
But yeah.
And it's also very interesting because I came from a very different like context, in the sense of like I had extremely, from what I can tell, or pretty healthy like roles of like men and women, or like women being championed in the church, and even if like there was discourse over if like this woman should be preaching, my parents were like, no, of course you should, because she's got like something to say, and that was it. Like we didn't like go into it, you know what I mean? So it's really crazy to see the differences in between us. But no, there's nothing that we specifically have disagreed with.
No.
Watch me, I'll be lying in bed tonight thinking and
be like, oh yeah, there was that one thing.
What about when she said this absolutely ridiculous thing? I had the chance. I think there's a lot of when people cringe at the word feminism, right? And particularly in the church, people don't like it. They react quite strongly to it sometimes. And that is off the back of this association with feminism and anger and frustration and resentment. And I totally sympathize with that, right? It's so funny because when I first started talking about this on social media, I like kept saying like, feminism isn't about being angry. We're not angry. We just want to see women elevated and given these opportunities. And then I got a message from a really good friend of mine. She was like, stop saying we're not angry. We're really angry. And I was like, right, okay, so some of us are angry. I feel like actually what is more important to focus in on. And I think a lot of men as well are like, if you identify as a feminist, then you're trying to do me down. That is not the aim in the slightest. There is a model of feminism where everyone rises together. It's not a seesaw where one goes up and the other one goes down. Actually, there's so much research that supports the idea that when women are elevated and given a voice in spaces, the collective is better, because diverse voices only improve and sharpen thinking, right? Iron sharpens iron. And just hearing someone who has the same views as you, has the same life experience as you, same perspective as you, is never going to introduce the challenge that is required to continue improving. So I see the championing of women as beneficial for men, not as an opportunity to do down men as well, because 100% we need both.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And the thing is I had a chat with our pastor a while ago. I don't even know if this goes in with this, but I was just thinking about this whole concept of the spirit of Ahab and the spirit of Jezebel, right? And how, I know, crazy topic, but how, people like to throw out the whole spirit of Jezebel thing, right? Like, oh, this woman has spirit of Jezebel. She's angry. She's
people
controlling.
Definitely don't say that in front of me. If that's a thing, then people are really holding it down when I'm in the room, because I've not heard that, and I can imagine myself not enjoying it.
To be fair, I've never had anyone tell me directly, but yeah, we had this conversation about it, right? Like, how do you combat this whole spirit of Jezebel over a generation, over a group, over a church, whatever, right? And then we had this, like, the fact that the spirit of Ahab is also a thing that no one likes to talk about. and how they do go hand in hand, right? And how when you now that's the I think the evil, the shadow part of it. But if you think about the good side of it, if you elevate a woman and a man at the same time, that they're able to know their positions, know their identities in Christ, and it becomes a thing where you can break both, you know? And it's not just about combating one or the other, but recognizing that both need to be elevated and appreciated to their specific degrees, if that makes sense.
When people talk about a spirit of Jezebel in the context that you've experienced, just to clarify, just in case I'm misreading, that's like a spirit of promiscuity, is it?
Not necessarily, usually like a spirit of control, of pride, of, yeah,
Manipulation. Do
manipulation,
they ever
exactly.
refer to a man having a spirit of Jezebel? Because I don't see why it has to be gender specific.
Actually, no, I don't think I've ever
Yeah,
heard.
I don't know.
funny
Yeah.
that. Funny that. I think that men
Fair, yeah.
demonstrate sort of controlling and manipulating things just like in the same way that women do. I don't think that I don't think that that needs to be gender specific. I mean, I display a lot of the character defects that you see in David, that you see in Moses when he doubts himself, like, and I don't think that those are male specific. So I don't see why the shortcoming, let's share the shortcomings of the Bible around.
Yeah,
Hey.
come on.
Like
Actually,
we
yeah.
can all identify with all of them.
No, to be fair, I've actually never thought about that.
Yeah.
Like, of course, I'll be like, oh, I'm so much like Peter. I've got a big mouth or whatever. But I've never heard a guy say, yeah, like I want to be like Esther. Like,
Yeah,
I've never
right.
heard that
Yeah,
before.
I know. It's just the time that we're in though. Like men don't really buy books written by women often. It's far less likely that a man will buy a book written by a woman, whereas women buy books written by women and men.
Yeah.
And men don't open themselves up to identifying maybe with the character. But like I think all men could be more like Mary. Like I know everyone thinks that Mary is amazing in the Bible, right? But there's a powerful woman. There's a woman who raised her son to die, who stood up and said, I'll take on all the shame and societal shame of doing this for you, God. Like, I don't care about my reputation. I don't care about what's next for me. I'm going to carry this baby, even though people are going to make such horrendous judgments. I could be an outcast. I could be completely ostracized for this. I think that if I heard a man say, like, I could learn that from Mary, I think that that would be incredibly phenomenal.
Hmm.
I've never thought about it like that. Yeah, yeah.
This is why we have you on the podcast. Give us
Yep.
stuff that we have never thought about before.
Love it.
Now, was your like you obviously wrote notes on feminism? Was it because you saw a need to speak about it, or was it something that your friends are already speaking about, or was it that no one was speaking about it, or what was sort of
Yeah.
the prompt?
Yeah, so we were talking about me and my editor at the publishing house were talking about my second book, and I had said like I think there's something in there about feminism and the res and to be honest, feminism is a few chapters, but really what we're talking about is the lived experience of women in a church context, and not even always in a church context, in the world and stuff like that. So it kind of straddles both, and just as we were talking about it, Sarah Everard was abducted and killed from Clapham. And this was during the pandemic. I think it must have been 2021. And that was huge in the UK. There was a real reckoning around that moment. And it was coming hot off the back of hashtag Me Too in the States that then became this whole global movement. So it was really big at the time. And we were seeing increasing church scandals where women had come forwards and reported abuse or poor behavior, and they had been silenced or ignored or told to stay with their husband anyway because we don't get divorces because we're Christian, and a few things like that. And obviously there have been much bigger scandals, and not specifically with female victims either, that have come out since. But there was just a real question around power and around strength and around the ways in which women were finding themselves on the losing side of that over and over again. And my editor was like, I think that there's a Christian perspective to be spoken into on this. And she sort of said, like, what do you think? Should we do that kind of notes format, lots of different topics? And she also said, look, we need to get some more voices in though, because it's well recognized that early feminism of the sort of 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s fell down because it was not very inclusive. And it spoke specifically of the lived experience of white women, which I am.
Yeah.
I'm like a middle class white woman with a university degree. So, in many ways, experience huge privilege. So, that's why there are a few other voices mixed in as well. Like, I mean, Delphine Chui, she's she's the first guest chapter in there, and she like just doesn't describe herself as a feminist at all, and her perspective was really from a complementarian stance. And if you see some of her other writing and speaking, she's really into things like modern modesty, which a lot of women would say isn't conducive with feminism at all. But I think it's important to acknowledge, as you say, these different perspectives. So she wrote it. We had Katie Piper, beautiful Katie Piper, talk about beauty, having experienced such a dramatic change in her looks after the attack that she went through when she was in her early 20s. And then, oh, if you haven't come across Tiffany Bloom, she's a US writer, and she wrote a book called Pray Tell about why we silence women. And she's written a guest chapter as well. And my goodness, like you read it and you're just like, the power in her words. And then, yeah, Abby Irozaru, the Olympian, what she wrote about women's bodies, I couldn't even have researched, because I don't think people are saying it. You know, like you just don't really think about when your body is a tool, but also it is so subject to sort of like analysis by other people and comment. But it's your job to hone your body and your craft. Honestly, it was absolutely breathtaking to hear her speak about the sort of the dynamic between those. So yeah, those chapters are like my favorites.
Yeah.
There we go. Got the top recommends right from you.
Yeah.
Did you find that when you were asking people to write a piece for the book, like were people like eager to do it, or were they also a little bit like on edge? Because again, feminism is such a loaded word.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of the women, everyone had quite a detailed description of what was going to be in the books. They took the time, thought, prayed about it. No one said no to contributing, actually. Everyone was in from the off, which was good. But a few people, like Delphine, you know, it sounds like a book that's going to be contrary to her views, and in many ways is. So she wanted to have a conversation about that, and I think, or everyone wanted to understand like what the actual messaging was going to be before they sort of put their name to it and contributed in their way to it. So yeah, I totally understand that. I think that's just good. Sorry, my dog. Oh my gosh.
It adds character. Don't worry.
It's great.
We love it.
I ordered an H&M package, and she's taken it upon herself to do an unboxing. Thank you. Thank you. Can you let it go, please? I'm on a podcast. Honestly, they said it would be hard to get a dog, right? They're like, oh yeah, it's like having a kid. And you just think, come on, grow up. It's not. And then you get the dog and you're like, wow, why did I do this? It's so hard.
What kind of
And I
dog is
love
it?
her. She's a Vizsla. She's a
Oh,
Vizsla crossed
cute.
with a Bracco Italiano. Hang on, there, can you see her there?
Cute.
Playing
Oh,
on her
there
bed.
is. Yeah, I dog sat for approximately 3 weeks, and I went, no. I said, this is too
Harder
much
than you
work.
think it's gonna be. Yeah, it is harder than you think it's gonna be.
Do you identify as a dog mom? Is that something you call yourself?
100%. I actually describe myself as a single mum, which really throws people off. And I'm like, and when I'm dating and stuff, I'm like, obviously, I've really got to take into account the fact that I'm a single mum now. And people look really confused. And I'm like, if they don't like dogs, then we really don't have a conversation to have.
That's fair. Oh, she's going for it again. She's going.
That was like perfectly timed, actually.
Okay. Right. And that just proves my point.
Exactly.
So, there we go.
If you're not watching, if you're just listening,
Yeah.
her dog literally jumped on the counter to grab the package right behind her. So that's your audio description
did.
for you.
She's being a total menace to society. When she's finished ripping things to shreds, she'll just kind of sleep. Like she's managed all the mischief that she's going to manage that day.
She said, yeah, that's it.
And that's her
it.
done. Yeah. Sorry, take me back. What are we talking about?
No, this
Honestly, this is literally how our podcast goes all the time. Like
Yeah.
this is you're flowing. We're like we'll be like talking about something really serious, and then it'll be like, Oh, I have this song stuck in my head. Like it'll be so random. So this is perfect.
This is great. Something that I actually want to shift gears a little bit because obviously we've got feminism, okay, that you wrote a book on. Also singleness in the church, which again, sometimes people love to talk about it and sometimes people hate to talk about it. But I am curious, is there anything else going on in the church right now or not going on that you're like, okay, maybe I don't have enough info to write a book about it, but I wish the church was talking about this more often?
So in my context, I'd say there are two things, but church looks so different for different people, different parts of the
Right. It's true.
country, different denominations. But in London, where I go to churches, which tend to have quite a young congregation, they're kind of charismatic. I'd say two things spring to mind. One is the amount that we are drinking and the amount that we're drinking at church events. And I'm real advocate for dry church events, and I don't see them very often. And I think different, and like that's why I specify about denominations, because I grew up in a Baptist church where you just wouldn't see alcohol. And now I'm in a more sort of Anglican, non-denominational vibe, and you very much do see alcohol. And that is totally different. So I would say that's something that I find really difficult and have raised conversations about. But I'm a person who's in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, which we haven't mentioned yet. So that's very, very close to my heart.
Mm.
The other thing, which I don't need to write a book on because someone else has and they've done it amazingly, is it's a book called Invisible Divides by Paul. I can't remember his name, but Natalie Williams. There's two authors. Natalie Williams is one of them, and it's on class in the church and
Oh.
how there are some
Oh.
churches which are like kind of rich church, right? Like kind of posh. They go on ski trips together and stuff like that. And then there's like churches where you cannot even fathom being able to afford £1,000 for a ski trip. So talking about how we've ended up with that kind of divide in church, and that I think is really interesting. It's a brilliant book. She's a brilliant writer and runs the charity Jubilee Plus, which is a poverty charity, and poverty is part of her story as well. So she speaks about it so well. But that I think anything that brings division
Mm.
is something that should be thought through, should be addressed, because like we've already said, structures function best with real diversity, and that's what I believe the church is supposed to look like. So we don't want like that's where you go if you're rich, that's where you go if you're poor, that's where you go if
Right.
you're black, that's where you go if you're white, that's where you go if you're complementarian, that's where you go if you're egalitarian. I want us all to just be in one big messy room.
I love that.
No, I love that. I want to go back to what you were saying because you mentioned just a bit about your testimony, and
Yeah, sorry, I
especially
just kind of sprinkled that
no,
in and
it's
then went
fine.
straight off in
The thing
another
is I
direction,
I
didn't I?
love
Yeah.
how I mean you bring that into both books at like very minimal, but I'm very curious for you where if you want to share anything about your testimony, but also specifically when you came back to the church, and I guess how like how that transition back was, how much of a struggle it was, how welcomed you felt. Not that we want to like put any blame on anybody, but if that's a topic that you want to, that needs to be talked about. I'm curious what your experience
Yeah.
was.
I had some real issues with church early days when I was younger, like as a teenager and stuff. Like I was in a church where the pastor left his wife for a member of the congregation, and the youth leader well, I've seen a youth leader leave his wife for a member of the youth as soon as that person turns 16, right? So we're talking about some serious impropriety, some really serious situations that I saw. And I saw a husband who had hit his wife because she wasn't being sufficiently obedient. And I just thought, like, I won't tell you the exact words because this is a Christian podcast, but I was like, I'm
But we're
leaving.
real, so it's
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
it's all right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, you can fill in the gaps, but I was like, I'm just not like, this is just horrible. And then you got this whole message. You feel relentlessly judged. You're surrounded by people who are doing awful things, but it's all like underpinned by the Bible and these like conversations on what you should be doing, and like everyone's pretending like they're so holy and that under these circumstances, God would be fine with it. And you're just like, I just don't feel loved or see any love here. So I left when I was like 13. I started drinking. That's around the time. at that time in the UK that you could start getting hold of alcohol. It's much harder now. But like I'm 36, so when I was 13, you could just walk into like a shop and buy booze and no one really sort of questioned
Wow.
you. Then they brought in like Challenge 21 when I was 17. It became when I was 17, I couldn't buy alcohol, but when I was 13, I could. It was, yeah,
Yeah.
Interesting.
fun,
Wow.
good
Okay.
time.
Tell me how that makes sense.
Yeah, and I became a drug addict and an alcoholic, and that became really my solution. I think we're all looking for something, right? We're all desperately looking for something that fills a gap, that fills a void, and I couldn't find it. And I didn't think even then that I had found it in drugs and alcohol. I just didn't. I just stopped looking. I didn't care because you're like,
Wow.
that's cool. I'll just take the drugs and alcohol instead then, because this is never, nothing here is satisfying me. So I'm going to stop searching for satisfaction and accept oblivion instead.
Wow.
So that's what I did. And that was fine in that it caused a lot of pain both to me and the people around me. But when you're doing it, it's very hard to realize like quite the impact of what you're doing, because you're single-minded. You're not thinking about your overall health or your overall growth or your spiritual development or what God would say or what your friends or family would say, because you just want the drugs. And that's the point. And you get to kind of check out from life because you've got one sole purpose. Um, so it was only really hard when I came out of it and realized, and you sort of you step out, you turn back and you look at the absolute mess you've made of your life. And you're like, how am I going to put out this bin fire and try and build something good out of it? And that is a years and years and years process. So my friends staged an intervention in the end. They weren't Christian. They just knew I was burning.
Wow.
And they were like, you've got to go to a recovery meeting. So I did. I wasn't living in the UK at the time. I'd like run away, which is quite a classic addict thing to do, to like move, because you're like, I've got so many problems here. If I move, they'll go. But you always take you with you. So those problems kind of stick around. So I went, and then I ended up going to a recovery meeting. And they were like, you've got to find a higher power and it can't be you. So the last higher power that I'd had was this whole Christian God thing. So I rocked up at a church and I thought, like, we'll see how this goes. And if not, I honestly probably would have just ended up doing yoga or being like vaguely Buddhist, like lots of people do, like something like that would have
Yeah.
just been good enough, sort of praying generally to like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, nature, or I don't know, whatever, like the earth or something.
Yeah.
But I found what I was looking for quite quickly, and people like prayed for me and they really took me under their wing. And it was a totally different experience to the one that I had first time round. And I didn't feel judged. And so, for example, like when I walked into a church for the first time, I was 5 days sober from alcohol and drug addiction,
Wow.
but I was still smoking cigarettes. And I smoked cigarettes for like a year. I was baptized and smoking cigarettes like on the same day. And no one, everyone was just like, she's on her journey. Whereas if that had been in
Exactly.
my first church, they would have been like, you can't be Christian
Right.
and do that. You're completely wrong. And you're just probably some sort of damnation talk would have happened. But actually, like, no, they were just like, she'll work it out. She'll work it out. She's loved. She's here. Jesus loves her. And she will get there. And I did eventually. But I don't think God takes everything off you at one go. It's gentle.
Yeah.
It's just giving up drugs and alcohol. Like, let us smoke for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So actually I started to love church. I started to love faith. I didn't know Jesus. I didn't understand Jesus. I thought it was all a bit weird. But what I know now, having sort of 11 years on, where I can reflect on it, that what I was shown was the best interpretation of the love of Jesus that those individuals, those human people
Yeah.
could show me. And that was enough to keep me coming back until I realized how good the actual Jesus guy was,
Yeah.
and then became familiar with his love and his redemption and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm just a totally different person, like totally different, night and day. You wouldn't have wanted me as a friend, disagreement or not,
No.
before. And now here we are.
It's so
No,
good.
yeah.
I mean, that's what the
Yeah.
church is supposed to be, right? It's
Yeah.
we're Jesus, trying to portray Jesus the best we can. And I love hearing stories like that and testimonies like that of
Yeah.
people just literally loving the way Jesus would have loved.
Yeah. And it takes the pressure off
Yeah.
of performance too. And I think
Exactly.
it's crazy how easy it is within the church to slip into performance.
Mm.
But I love that you were just given the space to to get on your journey with God, and then he heals and delivers and
Yeah.
restores and all that in his timing, you know? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. I think that's very much it. They didn't look at me and see an agenda and see a tick box of things that needed to be fixed in my life in order for me to be a good Christian. They just saw me and thought, whatever she comes with today, whoever she is, whatever anger, whatever upset, whatever she brings, we're just going to love her. And it changed me. It really changed me. And I think that we all need to do more of that, you know?
That's so
that's
good.
incredible.
So good.
Man,
I'm like,
we can go on forever, but
We
we're literally
literally could.
almost
Yeah.
at the end of our time, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy.
It has
Um,
flown by.
it has.
I know, but it's great. It's great talking with you. It's really refreshing. As we say, it's just like having a chat.
Yep.
But something, obviously, we're called the anchor of the week. And the whole idea is like friends that keep you anchored, things that keep you grounded, right? And so a question we like to ask our guests is, what is something that has kept you anchored this week? Something that has kept you stable, grounded, and whatever kind of expression that is.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I recently looked around and realized that aside from church, which is on Sundays, but I'm not as consistent at my church as I would want to be because I speak on Sundays. So I try not to do that. I try to do it like maybe twice in a month so that I'm not away too much. But I sort of looked around and I was like, there's something missing community wise. And about 6 weeks ago, I set up like a little Bible study small group thing. And I remember saying to my mum, like, I messaged 20 people, knowing full well that most of them already had some sort of setup like that. But I was like, I don't know what's going on with them in their life. Maybe God's calling them to downsize, do something else. So I just said, I'm going to do this on a Tuesday. Come, don't come. It'd be great to see you. And I said to my mum, I was like, no one's really saying that they're going to come. And she's like, doesn't matter. You sit, you pray and read the Bible for an hour and a half on a Tuesday night. And if God wants people to come, they'll come. So I was like, okay, fine. And then two women started coming, and it has now become so important to me. And I think that we can look around and be like, we don't have community, we don't have that kind of deep connection, whatever. And actually, it's really making me think like, issue the invitation, say like, I'm going to be here praying. If you want to show up, I want you to show up. And each week those two women have come. So we've now like gone deeper, gotten to know each other a bit better. So on Tuesday, we sort of like have some food, talk about so the model is me, God, others. So me over dinner, we talk about ourselves, like here's what my week's been, here's what I'd love you to know about me. Then at
There she
then
goes
we
again.
do a Bible study. That's the dog again, just trying to ruin me in the last minutes. Then we do a Bible study. So we're reading Kings, and people don't really read the Old Testament enough, I think. You can't really escape the New Testament in church, but the Old Testament you have to dig for.
Yeah.
So I'm really loving reading Kings. We're doing that. And we're using Dig Deeper into Kings, which is a book, which is like a commentary. And then other people is the last bit, and that's where we pray for each other and for the world and blah, blah, blah.
Wow, that's so
And
good.
my goodness, that anchors me. It's just like, it is just so good to be able to sort of share and like do some Bible stuff, reflect on it, have someone pray for you. So I guess probably what you wanted was like a Bible verse that people can take forwards with them through the week or something. But I just say like, talking about God, praying to God in community, um, is absolutely transformational. If you don't have that, you don't have to wait for someone to invite you. You should definitely set it up.
Love that. And I love the ownership of that too. Don't wait for the invitation. Just do it.
Issue it.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is so great. Okay, Lauren, we have, according to our free trial of Zoom, we have 1:45 left. So this is take 30 seconds now and plug whatever the heck you want to plug about your books,
Oh my
about all
gosh,
of that.
yeah.
Where can people
What shall I
find you?
plug? Yeah. I'm most active on Instagram, which is Lauren Windle _ because someone else had taken Lauren Windle and she's since
Lame.
gotten married and changed her last name, but she's still got Lauren Windle
Give it
as the
up, Lauren
thing.
Windle. Give it up.
This is the official campaign.
Yeah.
I did message her, but no, we can't force people out of their social media handles. So Lauren Windle _ that's me. I'd love if people are interested, if you're feeling hurt about your dating life and you feel like God's not listening anymore and it's kind of hard to keep going, then I think Notes on Love's probably for you. And if you feel unheard and unsure of your position and the church's position and God's position on women and whether they should speak and what they should be like and how they should be, then I think Notes on Feminism is probably for you. And otherwise, just what else would I plug? Oh, I've got a podcast as well called Cross Culture where we talk about what's been happening in the week.
Love it.
Which is really fun with Dr. Belle Tyndall,
Ooh.
who is also Justin Briley's podcast co-host. So I'm in good company.
Amazing. We'll link all of that in the show notes so
Yes.
people can get it easily. Thank you so much, Lauren, for your time today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming. Hope we chat to you soon.
Yes.
See you
At
soon,
any
guys.
moment,
Thanks
this is
so
going to
much.
shut down. So
Yeah.
we're waiting. Have a great rest of the night. Enjoy your sun here as well. It's sunny
Yeah,
in the UK
thank
finally.
you.
But yeah, we'll see you soon. Hopefully.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Amazing. What an awesome chat.
Honestly, yeah.
Gosh. That's so...
She's so chill, man. I love her.
I know. And it
yeah.
felt so easy.
Yeah.
It was true what we said at the beginning, that it really is just like being her friend.
Genuinely.
But yeah, like we said, we'll have everything in the show notes. You can stay connected with her. I highly recommend checking out her stuff.
Please, yeah.
Clearly, in that 40 minutes, not even that we had with her, I'm sure.
We could have gone to so many other
So
conversations,
many other
other
conversations.
topics, but yeah.
Exactly. And you guys know where you can find us as well. Of course, we got the YouTube. Why do I always say that? I feel like I'm gonna say my parents, but they watch this podcast, so I shouldn't say that. But yeah, YouTube, Spotify, obviously all podcast platforms. Stay connected to us on Instagram, TikTok, all of that.
Yeah.
But guys, we hope that you stay anchored this week,
Yes.
and we'll see you next episode.